Hi, this is Vicki at Knitting at the Top of the World, and this is episode 9. So I'm filming from my phone today. My computer is still giving me grief, so bear with me. This may not be the best way to film. Here, sorry, I'm going to move it a little closer so you guys can hear me, but we're going to try it. So today is going to be a full episode. I do actually have finished objects, and I've got 2 finished objects. I have tons of stash enhancements, some that I made, some that I've purchased, and I have 2 works in progress that you haven't seen. So I'm going to get started with my finished objects here. I'm going to try to stick the phone back. I'm hoping it's able to hear it all. I might try this once more with my my brain's gone flat with my microphone, but for my finished objects, I finished my socks. So, as I was saying, I finished my Island of Misfit Toys socks that I casted on Christmas Eve. I finished them actually the evening of my last podcast, so the 30th of December. So, I was able to start my Jaw Wool socks on the airplane on the 31st, and they are almost done. I'm going to probably complete these tonight. So, these are with the Jaw Wool that I bought at A Good Yarn in Sarasota. They're on size 1's Knitter's Pride squares, which is the first time I've ever used these. So far, I don't mind them actually. And I've got 2 going, so I am using my needle holders by a gnome knitter that my mom got me for Christmas. And the heels are Fish Lips Kiss, and they're in the Regia Baby. So those are one of the works in progress I have going on. And the second one, which is kind of a preview of my stash enhancement, is I've only got one of these socks started because I only wanted to cast it on because I was excited when I got the yarn, is Felici's Teacup Sock Yarn by Knit Picks. And these are on size 1.5. And this one I've made a little smaller. So instead of these ones I cast it on 60, these ones I cast it on, I think 56, I believe. I was trying to keep it an even number. So this one has 56 casted on. It's a little smaller, but it's very stretchy. The goal is that this one was going to fit a little bit nicer with a tighter fit. So I will see. It might end up being a child sock, which is all good. I've got lots of little kids to give socks to. So this will bring me into stash enhancement. So we've done finished projects. Oh, I forgot to show you my other finished project. I'm so flitzy today. Yes, I made time to do all those, but I finished a big project. I finished my sweater, which it's hard to get in the picture. So I'm going to turn the camera just a little, sorry, and show you the sweater. I finished my sweater, so I'm going to try my best. Ignore my silly kitchen in the background and my refusal to wear real pants. So I finished my sweater. It's hard to see it all the way, but... And this was the oblique cardie. I opted not to do the ribbed edge. By the time I finished, I really thought that this was quite a bit. So I finished my sweater. So I just wanted to insert here that for the sweater, I actually started off blocking it before I sewed it together. So here's a picture of my block party that I had at my house. But I blocked it, and then when it was only a little damp, I started to sew it together. And then I reblocked it a second time, just so you had an idea of how we got to that finished product. And here was it hanging to dry after being blocked for the second time. But I just wanted to let you guys know that. So, I finished quite a bit. My phone keeps falling. I'm going to edit that out, hopefully. If not, I'll redo this. But I finished a pair of socks, I finished a sweater, and I'm almost done with the second pair. So, now I wanted to talk about something that I did while I was home for break, which was hand dyeing yarn. So, I used myself and my mother used the acid dyes. Here, I'll grab them. One of these kits, except we got a lot more colors. I bought her a lot more. They're acid dyes. Most of them were Jacquardi. Don't know how to say that. Acid dyes. We used vinegar, not citric acid. I bought citric acid. I took the set with citric acid home because it travels a little nicer than vinegar. It's a little harder to travel with vinegar in your suitcase. But I'm going to be trying this here in Barrow, and I bought all the supplies to do that, and I'll show that in a little bit. But I did want to show you what I made. So I made a sock yarn, and this was all from Knit Picks, and this one I like to call Galaxy. It looks a little bit different than it did when it's skeined up now versus or caked up. It's not really skeined. It looks different now caked up than it did when it was on the hanger, but it's got lots of black and gray, and then pinks, yellows, and blues. It's like a rainbowy color. So this is not the whole cake. I have it split into two because I'm going to make some socks out of that, probably when I'm in New York. I also did a set of roving, and I like this one. I call it Cotton Candy. It's pinks, purples, a little bit of flecks of blue. In this version, I didn't actually do it in a pan. This version I did in a tub. This version I did in a bag doing the microwave version. And this one I did in the pan, and this is my favorite. And I don't know what to call it. I'm thinking tropical blue. And it's got all sorts of different colors. And I kind of have plans for these. This one is going to be a special hat that I have a pom-pom to match. I think I showed them last episode. And this one is going to match, I don't know what this one's going to be exactly, but it's going to be a hat of some kind. I'm going to find a good pattern. But yeah, this one's going to be a special hat that I saw a pattern for on Pinterest. It's going to be a surprise. So once I show it, I'll let you guys all know about what the pattern is and how I got the idea. But I saw it on Pinterest and I thought that'd be a great idea. Sorry, my hair is a nightmare mess because I just went for I went for a nice long walk out on the lagoon, which is frozen about 4 feet deep. The lagoon is deeper than that, but 4 feet of ice is a lot of ice, and I'll be showing pictures of that because there's air bubbles caught in the ice that tell you know how deep it is. So those were the stash enhancements that I made, and I'll be showing you more hand-dyed yarn because I'm going to be doing that hopefully this week before I leave. So for the second part of stash enhancement, I bought a ton of Knit Picks cotton to be dyeing with kids. So I'm hoping to do a knitting club with some of the kids at the middle school. I've got to just get approval to do it, but one of the things I thought we could do first before we actually started knitting was to dye our own yarn. So that way they can start knitting with yarn they've already dyed. So I have 2 bags of these cotton yarns. They're called Marshmallow, and they are, how many yards? Sorry about the crinkling. Let me just, I think they're 110 yards. I could be off. 164 yards. So there's quite a bit of yarn in here. For a kid, this is a perfect amount to make a scarf. Cotton's easy, washable. And I bought 2 sets of those the other day, or a few days ago. And then I bought this for me for dyeing, for myself and a few of the other ladies. This is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Superwash. And so it's a sport, or not a sport weight, a worsted weight. And we're going to try to do lots of different dyeing. So we're going to try using Kool-Aid, the proper dyes, and the acid dyes. So it'll be a fun experiment. So that was some of my stash enhancement. The next part was I bought myself some Felici yarn. This is Felici Rainbow, and it's 218 yards. And I'm going to make some Rainbow Dash socks for my youngest niece. She loves Rainbow Dash. And she has a Rainbow Dash sweater. If you don't know who Rainbow Dash is, that's My Little Pony. It's a big deal when you're 5. But I thought I'd make her some Rainbow Dash socks. And I was going to do the heel and the cuff in my Knit Picks Stroll Shimmer, and it's in the color Fiji. And if I'm going to try to get it close, it actually has glitter in it, glitziness in it. It's hard to tell, but I thought that this screamed little girl's best gift ever. So I'm going to start doing that hopefully soon. That might be an airplane knit too. I also bought, as I was showing you, Felici in Tea Party colorway, which this is going to be for me, I think, hopefully, if it fits right. If not, I'm going to order more and do one set for me. I love teacups. I don't have it here in Barrow, but I actually have a comforter that's teacup themed. I love tea. Just kind of how I go. So, this is my Knit Picks Tea Party sock colorway, and it's in the Felici, and I just have to say, I know Felici and Knit Picks yarn is not supposed to be the most expensive yarn in the world, but this stuff feels good. I mean, I've used a lot of sock yarn. I haven't used a ton of sock yarn, but I've felt a lot of sock yarn now. I like touching my yarn. And this just feels like silk. I'm curious to see how it'll do knit up, if it's gonna go limp or some yarns kind of stretch out, like the yarn that I made my nice hat out of, the Octopus Garden. I love the yarn. It feels wonderful, but it really doesn't hold very well. I'm curious to see how the Felici will hold, because it has that same silky feel, but it has the nylon in it, so it should have the bounce, so I'm hopeful. Is there anything else I got? Oh, and I got these two other colors in the Knit Picks Glimmer. And this color is Runway, and this color is Frost. I think I'm going to make a set of socks out of these as well for my older niece. I might use a little bit of this as well, whatever I have left over. I want to do a striping pair or a pair with Fair Isles. I might try Fair Isles for the first time with these little socks, because I thought she would like the glittery socks, and I just like that they're in Runway and Frost. Her birthday's in February, so I'm going to have to start these very soon. They actually might be the next project instead of the Rainbow Dash socks. Rainbow Dash is going to have to wait. So, what else should I be talking about with you guys? I do have the traveling cape still going, or the touring cape. That actually is probably going to be an airplane knit along as well. I leave Thursday night, and I'm very excited about that. I spent most of my afternoon yesterday up at the middle school, and I have lesson plans for the next 2 weeks done and ready to go. I have extra work assigned and ready to go. I just have to make my sub plans, which I'm going to do tomorrow probably, and leave with my I have 3 aides now in my classroom, which is wonderful. So I'm going to leave them with my 3 classroom aides so they all 3 know what's the game plan, what's going to be happening. But I will be in New York City Friday night. I actually land in Newark, New Jersey, so I'm probably going to take the train into the city. I just have to look at the logistics of the train versus the cab. The cab will cost more money, but then I don't have to think very much. Where the train is going to cost a lot less, but I'm going to have to get into Penn Station, and then from Penn Station get to, trying to think where I'm going to be, Times Square. And I am staying in the hotel that the Knitting Vogue Live is in, and I'm hoping to meet up with some of the other podcasters. Hopeful. I also have a friend who's going to be meeting up with me in New York, who I am so excited to see. Annika, I'm going to see you in New York City. But yeah, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be really happy to go. I'm going to have a ton of knitting, and I'm going to probably use my birthday money when I'm in New York City to buy some yarn, because yarn makes me happy. So that's what's happening with the plans for New York. Okay, so if you're not here to listen about, if you only are here to listen about knitting, this section of the podcast is done. Now we're gonna get into Barrow life stuff. So, like I said, my hair is kind of a mess, and I kind of look a little flushed and chilly all at the same time because I just went on a really long walk with my friend Alex, the counselor at the school. We went behind the school on the lagoon, and we went all the way across to the Barrow side. Like I've said before, I don't know if I've mentioned it, I live in Browerville. I don't live in Barrow. It's the same thing, but I live in Browerville on, let me put it, on this side of the lagoon, this one, and Barrow's over here on this side of the lagoon. And we crossed the lagoon on foot. We got off the road, took our dogs out, and let them loose and walked across the lagoon. And the sun is not yet coming over the horizon, but it looks like a constant sunset from about 11:30 to about 2:30. So it was a really pretty walk. And the ice, actually the wind had blown some of the snow clear of the ice, so we could see down into the lagoon. And it was really gorgeous. It was about a 2-mile walk according to my Fitbit, which is under here still. And yeah, judging by these, it was about 2 miles. And it was a lot of fun. She very graciously took a picture of what my face looks like on one of these walks. And mind you, I am wearing a ski mask that leaves only my eyes present. And I can't wear my glasses with it because it fogs up my glasses. So I'm going to be posting some of those pictures. Today was fairly warm at about 0 degrees. Last week it was 28 above. It was super nice. This week it was a little bit colder, but it's clear out, so that's kind of nice too. The sun is going to be coming back up, they say, around the 21st of January. Barrow people, correct me if I'm wrong here. And then as we go in, we're going to be gaining about 45-50 minutes of sunlight a day, which I'm super excited about. By the end of February, we're going to be back to a normal full day, and by the end of March, we're going to be to the much longer days. And then about 10 days before we leave for summer break, we will be back to 24 hours of daylight. So that's a really kind of cool thing. I was looking into, there's a website, I'm going to try to post a link for it below, but it's going to show you how Barrow gains daylight. Because I looked on it with the kids the other week, because I was curious and they were trying to explain it, and so we went onto the website and looked in on how much daylight we're going to be gaining, and then how much actual daytime there is, because it just talks about when the sun actually leaves from the horizon to setting below the horizon, but doesn't talk about how much dusk and dawn time you have. So I like looking into that as well. What else is, there's some more Barrow things we can talk about. Okay, so lots of people have been talking about on the news how the polar, in the North Pole it was 40 degrees. Yes, that did happen. Are we seeing any really repercussions here? Not really. Supposedly the sea ice is frozen enough for us to walk on it, and later in the week I might go out with Alex a little to walk towards it, but I'm not going to get on it. That's, to me, that freaks me out enough not to. Here it is very cold. It has not gone above freezing point this last 4 weeks. So yes, the North Pole was warmer. That does not mean it was warmer here. Here it was very cold still. What else is going on here in Barrow? Well, it's the middle of winter. They say when the sun comes out in February, it'll be warmer. It'll not be warmer, colder. Oddly enough, because that's when we get our winds in and the negative temperatures come in. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. But yeah, so far life's been a little interesting. I'm going to post the pictures from the walk because it's kind of interesting to see how the frost lines up on your face. And I was wearing my Octopus Gardens hat over my muff, which was really nice to wear because then my ears weren't getting as cold. I also was wearing my, I was wearing this, yes, but you can't see this because I also had on my, my Yipe Stripes cowl that I made out of the wool, out of gumball wool. That was also on my face. And my fingers are still recovering actually from being outside. If you can see, the tips are still pink. And I was wearing a pair of regular gloves. I have a good set of Timberland gloves and I couldn't find them this morning. I wore them, it's weird. I lose my gloves all the time. So I wore my Timberland gloves this morning to go to school. Put them away. And then this afternoon when I was going to go for my walk with Alex, I couldn't find my Timberland gloves. So I put on a regular pair of gloves and then I put on my big down mittens. And still, under all of that, your fingers just get cold. But it was a really lovely walk. And so there's some pictures of me out on the ice that Alex took with the city in the background, because we took a picture when we were in the middle of the lagoon to give everybody an idea of the distance from town we were. And then I think there's a picture of me on a giant snowdrift behind the school, which is also really cool to see, because the school is built on an angle of a hill. So one side of the snowdrift, the side she took the picture from, the snowdrift's about 10 feet tall. On the other side of the snowdrift is about 30 feet tall because of the way the hill is. So I had climbed up the 30-foot side because it had a better angle to climb up. She took the picture and then I slid down the front. It was a really good walk. So, yeah. Well, sorry to bore you guys all about my flight and stuff and Barrow life, but this was episode 9, and I'm hoping to podcast again. I'm going to try to podcast again before I leave for New York, because I should have more finished objects and more to talk about. Alrighty, thank you for joining me.